King. She is with Moms for America, and she is the host of the Keisha King Show. Keisha, thank you for joining us. Well, we are thrilled to hear that. We were discussing that before we went on the air, and we've had a relationship with Keisha for a while, and she is just one of our favorite people, and we are thrilled, really just thrilled you were able to come on the show and take time away from appearing other places on Fox News, your own show, all kinds of other places. You're willing to grace us with your presence for about half an hour. So the thing that, if you're on Twitter right now, a thing that has been getting an enormous amount of attention, we've drawn attention to this too on the website, going back for a couple of weeks. But those of you who are watching may be familiar with what is erroneously called the Don't Say Gay Bill. The Don't Say Gay Bill. Now, that is what leftists entitled a bill that is actually about parental rights in the state of Florida. And the idea behind this bill was that we don't want teachers talking to 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds about sex, about sexual orientations, about
what
sex
a radical
in general.
idea.
Yeah, this is, and that's what's amazing. And we're going to crack this open because there's all sorts of stuff as far as like how teachers are responding to this. What does this say about grooming? How there are certain billionaires Disney's responding to it. But first, so let's crack that open. And Keisha, I mean, really, this seems like an awful low bar that we don't want teachers talking with 8-year-olds about, I mean, forget heterosexual, forget homosexual sex. We don't want to talk with them about heterosexual sex.
Right.
This is a low bar, right?
Yeah, that always blows my mind because you can always tell when they haven't read the bill because they say it's the Don't Say Gay bill. So it's like, okay, well, show me where it specifically says the word gay or homosexual or anything that is pertaining to a specific type of sexuality. It is sexual orientation. And I know I did go to school and public school, so maybe I'm not like the best, but I know that sexual orientation encompasses all types of sexual orientation.
Yeah.
So it's not geared towards any specific type of sex. It is literally anything. We don't want a 5-year-old to learn about sex. I mean, let's just talk about ABCs. That seemed to work for quite some time.
Right. I mean, it's just an undermining of basic education. Your young grades, you're teaching them how to read and write and, blow their nose. And now people are angry because you can't teach them about sex, which is already so far beyond their developmental abilities to like comprehend, let alone bringing in any sort of LGBTQ agenda.
Yeah, they seem to sense that. I mean, like, I have kids, and mine are old enough now. Mine are, I want to say 12 and 16. No, just kidding. They're 14 and 15. But I remember the days when they were super young, and they didn't really know they were vaguely aware of differences in aggression.
Yeah.
And interests in things. My daughter was way more collaborative than my son, and my son was way more violent than my daughter.
Naturally.
But they're not, they're not aware of actual sexual differences. Why in God's name would you introduce them to that, to something like that at such an early age? I mean,
pick me.
I
know.
Hey,
go.
So there was this thing, I don't know if you guys saw, but there was this Disney lady, I forget her name, but she said it's a not so secret gay agenda. So I think the cat is out of the bag. I think that's why they want kids to be so sexualized, because they want to be able to push all types of things upon our children. I mean, she said, and I don't even think that it's just specific to gay, but I think it is just sexualizing children. I'm going to go there. Are you guys ready for me to be a little controversial? I'm going to say,
stir the pot.
I think that pedophilia I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds like, oh my gosh, we would never be like legalizing pedophilia. Like that's never going to happen. But there are people who think that pedophilia is fine. There are people who write papers, who have PhDs, and they say that that children don't have a natural innocence, and that the boundaries between adults and children should be removed. So this is a real thing. So I don't know. If you want to put on your tinfoil hat with me, you can go there. And I'm just saying, I don't know. It looks like they're trying to groom our kids.
No, I don't think there's a tinfoil hat there at all. The last time, I know what you're talking about. The last piece on this that I read was just 3 or 4 weeks ago. And gosh, they were talking about 12 and 13-year-olds, if I remember correctly. And the argument was essentially, well, if they're willing, then maybe it's not as bad as we've acted like it is.
Oh, it's the slippery slope. And I mean, to go back to your point, Keisha, of the idea of sexual orientation just encompassing everything and anything. I mean, can encompass pedophilia then? Because that can it's just.
Yeah, let's teach kids about pedophilia.
Yeah, it's just a sexual orientation towards children.
Oh,
that's
my
a fantastic
gosh.
point. That's a fantastic
I didn't even think about that.
Why would that be off limits?
Yeah, why?
Why would that be off limits?
Yeah, if everything else is going to be on limits, why is that specifically off limits?
Why would bestiality be off limits?
Yeah.
Oh, did you guys hear about, so do you know that book Beloved? I know, I forget, Toni Morrison wrote it, but there is, this is one of the books that parents were like, we don't want our kids to be reading this. It has a piece in there where it talks about, oh my gosh, if I'm getting the book wrong, please forgive me, but I believe it was Beloved, where it talks about like bestiality. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Because you know what kids will do. They're reading the book. They're like, okay, Mrs. So-and-so, you want us to read this? All right. So they go and read it. And then they come across like the word and they're like, what's that?
What is that?
And then now they're on the Googler. They're on the Googler.
Lord, yes. I see where you're
going.
going.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine when a kid is like, oh, I've never even heard of this. What does that mean? And then they go and Google it. Oh my God.
Well, right.
Trauma. That is traumatizing.
It is. It is traumatizing. And I mean, you open kind of the floodgates with any sort of this type of legislation that just kind of, because kids are curious. They're going to look up things. They're going to ask questions because that's the nature of being a child and growing up. And so then they're exposed to all sorts of things. I mean, if you look at the statistics, I think it's about 40% of children are accidentally exposed to pornography by the age of 11 because of, and people are like, I wonder why. Maybe because the idea of, curiosity, experimentation, all of this, the doors are just thrown open. It's
so unbelievably hard to regulate those things too.
Right.
Like my kids are not my biological kids. Their mom and I got married when they were 5 and 7. And even at that point, they had iPads. And had it been up to me, had I been in the picture earlier, that never would have happened. But we kept them locked out of the internet for about as long as we could.
Yeah.
But it is unbelievable how crafty they are, and not in a malicious, malevolent way. They're just curious. In fact, I think I don't know if I've said this on the show before or not. My daughter, when she was 9, managed to charge $3,000 to the Apple App Store.
That's impressive.
It was.
She's a girl for real.
It was not a good. That's a great line.
You got a con artist.
That's a great line. She's a shopper.
She's a shopper.
I mean, it's so hard to keep them locked out of those things. Right. And what we found, we found multiple different times that she was being reached out to by people trying to groom her. And we're like good parents. We're like watching this stuff, trying to keep it locked down, and it was happening. So they are trying to obliterate innocence.
That is insane. That is insane. That is probably the thing that I like that freaks me out the most is some big hairy, nasty, crazy man trying to groom my daughters. I have 2 daughters, 15 and 13. And that is just like, it's just terrifying. I mean, a woman too. I mean, I don't care what gender you are. If you're trying to groom my child, that's a problem. But the first thing that comes to mind, like as a mom, is just like some creepy guy that is, you know what I mean? Like it's just trying to do something harmful to my baby. I just, oh my God, I couldn't handle it. I'd be an orange, and not the good kind of orange, like ugly orange.
So this brings up, all right, so we've used the word grooming a few times, and if you watch the left is just so good at memeing things quickly and controlling the narrative. So they super quickly started calling it the Don't Say Gay bill. We have started calling it, and I think rightly so, the anti-grooming bill, which is exactly the lens to look through this at. I want to read a quote from a piece that Western published, actually published it today, and I just want to get you guys to respond. This is talking about the anti-grooming bill in Florida. Robert Tholander, a 6th grade teacher in Orlando, said he plans to make the career change to real estate after a group of parents took issue with his discussing his upcoming gay nuptials. He told NBC News that he thought the parents had been empowered by the bill. Quote, "A lot of trust is given to teachers, and it made it seem like I wasn't trusted because there's something wrong with me for being gay. It makes it seem like being gay is something vile or disturbing or disgusting when it's described as making children uncomfortable knowing that I'm married to a man. It hurt." Let me read you one more quote. This is from a different teacher, Nicolette Solomon. She said she's quitting her position as a 4th grade teacher because she says the bill would, quote, erase her, quote, as an LGBTQ teacher. Nobody would be able to know, which then puts me in the closet, and I'm there 7 hours a day, if not more, 5 days a week. I wouldn't be able to be who I am, she lamented. Why in the world would this cause you to quit your job?
Well, I mean, the first guy, he's going into real estate, so I feel like that makes sense. He's just going to go make more money.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But realistically, if you read the bill has nothing to do with anything about your identity as an LGBTQ teacher, except that they just don't want you telling small children about sex. That's it. It doesn't say, if you're an LGBTQ teacher, you need to never mention it ever. Bill doesn't say that.
So my thing is, it's like, how about you do what we're paying you to do with our tax dollar? We're not paying you to go in there and talk about, well, this is my home life, and everybody, this is my partner, whatever. No, we're paying you to teach for this group of kids, kindergarten to 3rd grade. I mean, what? ABCs, writing, math,
Exactly.
the basics. So, and where America is on, as far as education is concerned, I'm going to need you to do your job. Like, I don't need you to come in there and describe, all of your family. I think I read one of those quotes where they were like, it's like when we have our parent teacher conferences, we have, they give us a questionnaire and they're like, well, what do you like to do? What's your favorite candy? You can leave out all of your personal, your personal business, whether you're straight, whether you're gay, whatever. Just let the kids know what they need to know. And if they see these kinds of conversations happening in the classroom, I remember when I was coming up, the teacher would just be like, "Oh, little Johnny, that's something that you need to discuss with your parents." That's pretty simple to me. Like, I don't know why this is so difficult.
Who goes around in their day-to-day job, in an average job, fixated on their sexuality? I mean, who does that? I
traumatized people.
Maybe.
Hurt people.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
So that brings up, Keisha, I know you weren't here for this because you're not here in this building, but a couple weeks ago, were you out there when we were looking at the sex summer camp
Oh,
for
yes.
kids in
Yes.
Kentucky.
Yes.
Okay, so this is one of the most horrifying things ever. We actually need to just have Russ like queue up some pictures from this thing and just use it all the time. It is horrifying. It looked like there were 3, 4, 5 women, all in the LGBT, what they call the community. I think they're absolutely pushing that agenda, who want the kids to come to their camp so they can teach them about sex.
Yep.
And teach them not just about sex in the abstract, but teach them how to masturbate, teach them about BDSM, teach them about sex toys. And these,
Yeah.
I think the youngest kid mentioned was 8.
Yeah. So very, very
maybe,
young.
if I remember correctly. So, we were throwing that around, and I think I asked the same question, what in the world? And somebody else said, well, if this has happened to you when you were a kid, then maybe you want to mainstream it, because that means that what happened to me wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, is there something to
Yeah.
that?
Oh, I totally think there is. I think that there are a lot of people. I don't think that there is any person who has been sexually abused, period, whether adult or a child, who doesn't have some type of trauma with that.
Right.
So the thought that we would introduce sex to kids, without, just consensually, if you want to go, without there being force,
Yeah.
would that the trauma doesn't it doesn't go away just because it's not being forced. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
okay, there's one thing when a person is sexually abused, that's a forced thing. We're trying to normalize it so it's not forced. The trauma that happens in both of those scenarios doesn't change, though. That's the
Doesn't.
problem. You're still going to traumatize a child because they are not prepared to deal with something like that. Shoot,
Right.
there are adults that can't even have responsible sexual lives, let alone the children. This is absurd that in America we would be thinking about sexualizing kids this way. And just really quick, this one point I want to say, if you guys or the audience have never heard of a guy named Alfred Kinsey, this is where a lot of this perversion started, because he did experiments on children as young as 2 months old, where he was, how do I say this? He was being a pedophile on babies, and he documented this. It is sick. He was documenting this. He wrote a book, and then he put it out, and then it became like something to, people were started to look at his science, his work, and it started to get into early childhood education. This is long been in process. So this is not new.
It's a sick cycle. Very sick cycle.
Yeah.
So you brought up consent, and it just popped into my head. By definition, do kids who are in school, do they actually give consent? School isn't actually a consenting environment.
No,
They're actually
it's
held
not.
there.
They're actually held there, but the understanding of school is that they're held there by parental authority. So, I mean, the buck is supposed to stop with the parents because, that should be the natural order of things, that your parent is responsible for a minor, which is why even, a couple decades ago when schools were introducing sexual education for, middle schoolers, even that was controversial because it was like, well, do we want non-parents teaching sexual education? And then, I mean, you kick the can down the road and here we are.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
the truth. But I'm thinking about this. These kids are in an environment where they can't escape this.
Right.
I mean, you can't. Now, some schools make provisions for it, but if you're stuck in a class where they're teaching this and there's not some provision for you to leave, and by the way, you probably don't want to be the kid who says, I gotta go, mommy and daddy won't let me be here for this talk.
Yeah, talk about peer pressure.
Talk about peer pressure. Then you are in a
Yeah.
position where you're being sexualized without consent.
Right.
Without consent, and no one is talking about this.
And if you're young enough, you don't even realize that there's a line to be drawn. And that's the problem. And again, that goes back to an actual form of abuse.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. I don't know what else to call.
Right.
I don't know what else to call that.
And the thing that's supposed to be stopping that abuse in schools is parents. But schools and the state, the big bad state, is just intent on removing parents from the picture. They're like, well, no,
Yeah.
parents are not responsible enough. It needs to fall to the school.
And Keisha,
Yeah.
isn't this bill, isn't that essentially just attempting to reverse it, to put the parents back in control?
Yeah, we've been fighting for parental rights in Florida for quite some time now. So we have the parental rights bill, so that passed, and then we also have the parental rights in education bill. So we're trying to get more teeth into these these legislation pieces, so that parents actually have recourses to sue the school, the teachers. Governor DeSantis even opened this up to corporations as well. So if there is like critical race theory being taught, if there is queer theory and all these types of things, parents now have in Florida have some type of recourse to use. So it's an attempt to stop these mad teachers. There was a case here in Florida where an 8-year-old girl was being sexually assaulted by a little boy, and her parents did not know. The teachers knew, the guidance counselors knew, the administration knew. The only way that her parents knew that something was happening, she started wetting the bed and regressing in her development. And so, doing what parents do, you start to talk to the friends, parents are talking to the teachers, and they tell her, oh yeah, well, this was happening with this little boy. Not only was this little boy assaulting her, he was assaulting other children too. So here is this whole situation. Yeah, here is this whole situation where obviously this little boy is going through something as well. Parents had no idea. And, I'm sorry. I don't even know what that must be like to find out that your child is going through something so traumatic and no one thought to tell you. That is a particular type of evil, in my opinion.
And not even nobody thought to tell you. I would bet my next week's paycheck that plenty of people knew about it and either decided not to tell or felt like the law constrained them from telling.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call that other than evil.
Right.
Warped evil. It's just.
And I get, I get that there are some people who are bleeding hearts out there who would say, well, the kid who is molesting, he's a minor too. We don't want to destroy his life. So we're not going to say anything about that. But boy, you talk about having your priorities 100% reversed.
Yeah.
Or 180 degrees reversed. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, because kids don't come up with this stuff on their own. So something was happening to him. Yeah. He needs help too. So if his parents don't know, and none of the parents know what's going on but the adults. So this is probably, in my mind, my first thought would be maybe it's a relative, or maybe it's not even happening in the school, the person that was abusing the little boy. But certainly his parents would probably be able to get a hold of, get a hold on that situation to get him some help, because the last thing you want is for him to continue down this road. Exactly. And then now we have a whole other problem, with this kid.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
I feel like people would learn by now that cutting parents out of the picture is never ever a good idea for children. I mean, we've seen this in many forms for all of human history. If fathers or mothers are not present, your child is going to suffer damages. If they're abused by parents, it's a problem. If they are absent, it's a problem. And here we are. We all say, yeah, that's bad. That's a problem. But let's cut parents out of education in the classroom. Doesn't make any sense.
Stupid.
Yeah. So okay, so let's shift here just toward the end of the show. I want to bring up this Disney Heiress story. Western published this yesterday, and it's a fascinating piece. Abigail Disney is the granddaughter of Disney co-founder Roy Disney, granddaughter of Roy. Couldn't remember who his brother was. She has gotten super triggered by these conversations, and she took to Twitter in a fury back on April 1st, and she said the following: "Like all radical ideologues, the right wing has finally run amok and is coming to devour the hand that feeds it. Business. For my part, I'm delighted. It's the business world that has been, either by act or omission, feeding the opportunist right wing to distract us with culture war nonsense while they rifle through the till and empty everyone's pockets. It's just such a fantastically idiotic set of tweets.
Gosh.
This anti-woke right-wing nonsense is unsupported by a large majority of Americans. In fact, most Americans are offended by it and wish it would just go away. So there's a lot there to break down. But she says, I don't know. Let's take the radical right-wing ideologue. So seriously, parents who don't want their children, who don't want conversations to be had with their children about anal sex, those are right-wing extremist ideologues?
We're all radicals, guys.
I mean, honestly.
Insane. Right. This lady must be smoking the same stuff that Hunter Biden is on, because I do not know. Like, what in the world? When did saying, like, okay, let's just think about this. This woman is literally, let's think about what she's for. She is for sexualizing children, and she thinks we are the radicals. Like, girl, I'm going to need you to go, like, come off of your ivory tower. I'm going to need you to trickle down into regular society for just a moment so you can mingle with the regular folk. And so you can understand that that idea is extremely radical. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, that is absurd.
She's just living in her own reality that is so divorced from real reality.
Yeah, it's more of the death of the West, too, because the West is, I mean, we're the group that have essentially stamped this out.
Yeah.
We stamped out child marriages. We stamped out arranged marriages.
Yeah, go us.
Yeah. I mean, it's all over the rest of the world.
Right.
You know, it's considered perfectly fine. We're the ones who stopped it, and for good reason.
Yeah.
For good reason. There's no, and look, tribal societies thousands of years ago, you've got to procreate or the entire species dies. It's a different time. There is no reason for this in modern society.
No reason
at
for
all.
a 12-year-old girl to be married.
Even if there were, what kind of person, again, you just got to deal with the inside of what kind of person wants to talk with kids about these things?
Yeah. Messed up people.
It is
really
disgusting.
Messed up people.
So there is a little bit of hope on this, I think. Well, first off, the response to the Florida bill has been fantastic. I think the Dems super duper overshot. The "don't say gay" thing was idiotic because it's very easy to defeat. We came back with the grooming angle, which is spectacular. Parents are clearly behind this. You can see this in what happened in Virginia.
Oh yeah.
In November. Dang it! I thought about Virginia and then I lost my train of thought. Oh no! Oh no! What was it? We're winning on this.
Parents
Tulsi.
are behind it.
Tulsi. So
Oh,
So have either of you guys seen this clip of Tulsi Gabbard posted?
No. Wait, which one?
I did not see it. No.
It's about the Florida bill. Russ, let's grab that. We probably won't watch the whole thing. I'll just shout when we need to cut it off. But I want to run this. And guys, remember, she's a devout Democrat. She ran for
She's a party
the presidency.
liner. Yeah,
she ran for the presidency on the Dem side. Let's listen to what Tulsi has to say.
You may have seen in the news recently, or you may be a parent who's experienced how parental rights are under attack all across the country.
I don't know
as
if
the
folks
government
watching
tries
can
to
hear it
usurp
or not.
parents' rights and
I'm
responsibility
hearing
to raise
shouting
their own
from
children.
the booth.
And we should all support
Okay, can we restart
the Parental
it?
Rights and Education bill that recently passed in Florida. You may have seen in the news recently, or you may be a parent who's experienced how parental rights are under attack all across the country as the government tries to usurp parents' rights and responsibility to raise their own children. And we should all support the Parental Rights and Education bill that recently passed in Florida, which very simply bans government and government schools from indoctrinating woke sexual values in our schools to a captive audience that is by law required to attend. But as I read the legislation, I got to tell you, I was shocked to learn that it only protects kids from kindergarten till 3rd grade. 3rd grade? What about 12th grade? Or not at all? Now, government has no place in our personal lives. Government has no place in our bedrooms. Parents are the ones responsible for raising their kids and instilling in them a moral foundation, not the government. Now, the reality that we're facing in this country is our schools are failing. Nationally, 34% of students are below basic reading level.
The rest of the comments are good too, but we got to the meat of it, and good for her for going after school performance later in there. But
Yeah.
but guys, she ran for the presidency for the Democrats. She wanted the nomination. She sounds like a conservative Republican. Is this a good sign?
Yes.
Wow.
Keisha, what do you think?
ahead.
What's your response?
Oh my gosh. I'm listening to this like the girl has done jumped the fence. She does. She sounds like a conservative. I am shocked. She said that government has no place in our personal lives.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Shock and awe.
either she's really starting to see what's going on, or her political people are telling her, okay, girl, look, you better be on board with this parental rights bill, or you're gonna lose anytime you try to run for freaking dog catcher. So I mean, if you are smart, and you are a political person, you ought to not be against the parental rights bill. I mean, it's common sense legislation. I mean, what are you going to say? You're going to go and do like, what's his, McAuliffe did? Yeah, and I don't think parents should be involved. He's an idiot. Like that was so stupid. So
no one likes
all
that.
they have to do is show his face and say, do you want this to be your outcome?
That's spectacular. So we've, Abby, I think you and I have talked about Tulsi before. I can't remember for sure.
I like Tulsi.
Do you think is she on a journey headed maybe toward the other side of the aisle?
Maybe
or this side of the aisle?
Maybe. I would guess actually, though, probably not, because what's happening is that common sense, like she just said, was all just common sense. That's now being branded as conservatism. And I think that the Tulsi Gabbards of the world are going to try to make a campaign of like, no, this is not conservative ideology in politics. This is just common sense. Which in the really broad scheme of things, even though it's coming from the left and we don't love the left, that's pretty good news, though, that a few people have their heads on straight.
If they would, if moderate Democrats would retake the movement,
right,
and wrench it out from the hands of people who literally want to groom children. Let's be clear about this: who literally want to groom children.
Right.
If they would take control back, it would make all the difference in the world.
Right. If there is just, my opinion is always a growth of moderates is always a good thing. That is just.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't see anyone politically winning if you're going to be against parents, number one.
Right.
And number two, the only thing that I think about is that, you have these radical people who smell the water, who are, who can, what do they call it? Like they're reading the tea leaves. There you go. They're reading the tea leaves. And they're like, oh yeah, sure, we don't, we're parental rights, yeah. And then when they get in office, they flip the script on us, and then they revert, to their old evil ways. So that's my only thing. Like, are these people really serious? Like, what truly are your worldviews? Like, what's really going on here? I do hope that people are serious, because these are our kids, and this is the future generation, and this is our country. I'm just skeptical of these people. I'm side-eyeing them hard. I'm like,
cynicism is always healthy in politics.
I like the idea of side-eyeing them pretty hard as a good place to end for the day. Let's, we will end collectively giving the left a side eye. Keisha King, thank you for joining us. Tell folks where they can check out your work.
Sure. So the easiest thing to do is go to KeishaKing.com. My name is spelled with a Q, QUISHAKING.com. And you can find all my social media stuff there. You can check out my podcast. You can check out the mass exodus movement, where we are helping kids get into better education systems because public school isn't doing that great. So, you know, kids deserve every right to be in a great education system. So, and to get a great education. So yeah, KeishaKing.com, and you can find me there.
KeishaKing.com. She's with Moms for America, host of the Keisha King
Moms
Show.
for America.
Thanks for being here.
Yes.
We appreciate it
thank
so
you.
much. We want to have you back. Let's see here. Abby, thank you for being here.
Oh, well,
For the
thanks.
Folks
Thanks
in
for
the
having
booth,
me.
thank you for running things. For those of you who are watching, thank you for staying tuned. Be sure, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, to click the subscribe button. After you click that, a little bell will show up. Click the bell. That'll make sure you get notified every time we go live. Also, if you feel led to support the work that we are doing at the Western Journal, if you want to support truth in journalism, if you want to support us asking hard questions to people in power, standing for biblical values, standing for conservative values, then we would love for you to go to westernjournal.com/join. That's westernjournal.com/join. There you'll find multiple ways that you can partner with us to fight back against the left, to fight for the country, and to fight for traditional Christian values. Okay, that's it for us. Remember, we're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And until next Wednesday, stay safe. Have a good one. We'll catch you next time. It's been fun. See ya.